Coming up on At Issue, Mattoon hired a permanent city administrator this week, but he's not a stranger to the city or to the position. Kyle Gill is in the studio next to talk all about the city administrator position and what's in store for Mattoon. Stay tuned. At Issue starts now. Welcome and thanks for joining us for At Issue. I'm your host, Kate Pleasant. During its most recent meeting this week, the Mattoon City Council hired Kyle Gill as the permanent city administrator with a contract running through 2017. Mr. Gill is no stranger to the position, however, as he has been serving as the interim administrator since October of last year after the position was left vacant when the City Commission terminated the contract of Sue McLaughlin's release came after some controversy over a land sale. Gill stepped in after McLaughlin's release while also fulfilling his position as Community Development Coordinator. Kyle Gill joins me in the studio now, and we thank you for joining us to talk more about the position at the City of Mattoon. So thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So first, let's start with, what does the City Administrator for the City of Mattoon do?
City Administrator is basically the chief budget and financial official for the city. There is a lot of job duties with that, anywhere from developing policies for personnel to guide the city's future. I work for the council, of course, and with the department heads to recommend to the council the policies that should be adopted and how to implement them.
Okay, so you do work with the mayor and the city council on a regular basis? Correct. Okay, and do you work with strategic planning as well? I know you talked about planning, but... Yeah,
another main duty of administrator is, they oversee the daily operations. They look for long-term planning for the city. The budgetary is a big, time-consuming every year. Mm-hmm. So those are a lot of the issues that we work with.
Right, and so why did you pursue this position as the Mattoon City Administrator? Because you had positions that were within the city before. We'll talk about those in just a minute, but why this job?
I've been with the city for 18 years. I've worked with several of the administrators that we've had, and in the past I've noticed that some other cities' building inspectors had gone on to become city administrators, so I'd always kind of thought that was a neat idea, and the opportunity came open. I talked with my wife and said, I'm going to throw my name in the ring for the interim. And we did some of the duties with other department heads. We kind of split it up when Sue first was left the city. Mm-hmm. So we were all kind of doing bits and pieces of her job, and I decided that I would throw my name in the ring.
Okay, so what is it that you like about, this job?
I love working with the people of the community. I'm a people person. Anyone that knows me knows I have an open door policy. Come in and talk to me. I'll sit down and listen. And go from there. I might not always agree with everyone's complaint or logic, but I will sit down and listen to them.
So it's a lot about finding a solution.
Correct.
And so what do people in the city, when they come to you, you said the open door policy, what is it that they maybe need to talk to you about?
Various issues. It could be, why are we doing sidewalks on one side of town, not the other? And they got legitimate complaints. People don't understand what all's going on, what kind of money issues that are out there. Yes, we'd love to do every sidewalk in town, but can't always do that. So you're kind of the go-between then between the people and the city. So you're kind of hearing things from all over, taking what you know and taking it to the city. Correct.
The commissioners.
Okay. Correct.
All right. And so tell us about your history with the city. What have you done before, and how did that lead you to where you are now?
Mid-90s, I started working for the city in the building inspections department. When I first came there, they didn't even have a computer in the building inspections office. So I helped get a little bit of that, the electronics going in there, having a computer in there, putting permits in. I was working for the building inspector, got interested in what he was doing, and started to pursue building inspections. I was going to college and getting my undergrad studies, and I was planning on going to become an architect, and then got into the building inspections, enjoyed that, and changed my direction.
Okay, so kind of a natural direction for you then.
Yeah.
And what when you transitioned, because you had the community development coordinator position before, correct?
Correct. Like I said, started out as the building inspector
Right.
for residential, then commercial. My predecessor, building official, left, who also did planning. So I did the planning and zoning after he left. And when Andrew Koffler, our first city administrator, came in, he changed the name to community development and got me involved in more economic development along with the building inspections and zoning and planning.
Okay, so you kind of had the really well-rounded experience, it sounds like, with the community as well as those jobs there in the city.
Yes.
Okay, so did you find the transition from that community development director to this job to be difficult, especially given what happened with the last city administrator?
That always plays in the back of your mind, what could happen, but no, I didn't really find it too hard. There's a big learning curve. There's a lot I still am learning, but I'd worked with all the administrators on aspects of economic development, working with budgets, and so now it's just a lot bigger budget to work with.
Right, exponentially, I'm sure. So what did you find was the most challenging part for you, or is the most challenging part in taking on this job?
It is probably the biggest learning curve, and communicating with all the council members and department heads. In the community development, I'd always work with a contractor or a developer and the mayor, or the administrator. But now I've got more people to try to make sure I get all the information to, and get their feedback and pass it on down to the department heads, or vice versa, from the department heads to the council.
All the while dealing with the public too.
Correct.
So you kind of wear a lot of hats, it sounds like.
Yes.
Is this different than the type of system that, Charleston or other cities in the area have in place?
City administrator is a little bit different from city managers. City managers have a little more authority, where their councils are more of a policy maker by statutes. We, as the administrator, the commissioners are actually kind of the department head, so to speak. They can run their department how they want. The good thing about Mattoon is they've always given the administrator, though, more duties similar to the manager. So it's how the city wants to set it up. But one good thing about a city manager government is the council doesn't all change at once. They usually have staggered elections, so you only even get 2 or 3 new people, where as an administrator you could get a whole new council, 5 new members.
Okay, so you don't really necessarily have that, transition a little at a time. So that could be a challenging part as well.
Correct.
Okay, and so what will happen to the position that you vacated, the community development director? Is that going to be filled, or?
We're just still discussing that right now. I'm looking at a couple different options of what we could do. The community development leadership department head will not be filled, but we will have to do something with building inspections and planning and zoning, of course.
Okay, so in the interim, is there someone that's stepping in to do that, or?
Yeah, our plumbing inspector and electrical inspector have stepped up and have done a good job of taking a lot of the smaller building and zoning issues away from me. I still am there for questions and still doing part of it.
Okay, so it'll maybe be an easier transition that way because they still have access to you.
Correct.
Okay, so do you have any specific plans as administrator? Because I'm sure after all your experience in the city and then watching all of this, working with all the other administrators, that you've maybe come up with some ideas of your own?
Well, yes, it's basically been a part of other administrators. They've all done some good things for the city. From starting the TIF districts to redoing the parking lot at the YMCA and Progress Square. We're wanting to continue that effort of cleaning up Mattoon, community pride, extending landscaping down through the downtown area, and maybe even a streetscape with some street lights. It's in the preliminary stages, but we want to keep on working on that and bringing more tourism and stuff to the downtown area.
Okay, and why do you think things, like city beautification, why is that so important?
It's a lot of it is just getting the pride in the community. The more pride they have, the more people want to take care of what they have and keep our community, propping it up. We want everybody to be proud of the community, and the more that people are proud of the community, the better chances we got people coming into town, new economic development.
Okay, so attraction factor maybe.
Correct.
All right. So can you tell us about what's going on? You talked about, a couple of the projects that you're working on, but is there anything else that's going on in the city of Mattoon that, people might want to take note of?
Oh yeah, well, our public works crews are working hard right now on Elm Ridge, which is a subdivision kind of off the beaten path in Mattoon, but they put a new water main around there. There's going to be new sidewalks and new surfacing of the streets. We've got south side drainage, working on a new ditch along 9th Street and rerouting it around the edge of Mattoon to take care of some flooding issues we've done. This is a third phase of a large project.
I was going to say that's a bigger project, right? I know that's been ongoing for some time.
Yeah,
so
we've been doing that for about 3 years. Just lots of things. We've got, Carl Clinic's putting a clinic out on Route 16 and off the Lerner Road.
Right,
and
can't miss it if you've been out that way.
Yeah. We've got a lot of remodeling going on with some commercial buildings, so things are going good in Mattoon.
And the train depot, right? That's something that's kind of new, and it's kind of come up lately with some interesting projects in there.
Yeah, we actually moved our tourism director into the depot building, and we're got another room that we're remodeling, trying to finish off basically the depot renovations, which will be a room that can be used for the arts. Maybe have some plays in there. Special meetings and stuff like that, just a community room type thing.
And kind of brings people back to downtown maybe a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Are there any long-term plans for the city? These are kind of things that are going on now, but is there anything in the strategic plan, that's kind of big that we might want to take note of?
Well, there's a lot of different things. I mean, the biggest thing that we just got done with a comprehensive plan, and one of the biggest things is more economic development. So, trying to make our community a shopping hub, or get more people to come to Mattoon and get them interested in Mattoon. So we'll always be working on that. Some of the other things that in long-term planning is where we're going to put some roads. We've got a 5-year plan for our roads that are going to get redone, where we need some new roads. In the comprehensive plan, we have talking about possibly an overpass or an underpass around the west side of the railroad tracks. That's always been an issue for a long time for Mattoon. So just things like that.
Right, so that railroad overpass that's in the works, would that be something that would come out of the city budget? Would it be working with the state?
We'd have to get state grants to do. That'd be a very expensive project, but it's something that we want to keep on working towards.
Something to look into. And it sounds like it would save people a lot of time over there if you've had complaints and things like that.
Correct.
Okay.
And then there's always the issue of blight properties around Mattoon. Just as a big thing that we're trying to work on in community pride and cleaning up the blighted areas.
Okay. And so has any of the state or local funding issues, because I think everyone's kind of hurting right now, has that played a role in, what Mattoon's had to decide to do and put off?
It definitely has. It hasn't been as bad as it could have been, but we're always worried. We know how the finances are of the state, and that is the biggest concern that we have, and that's something that I'm watching very close to see what the state might take away from us next, and how we're going to adjust to that.
I was going to say that's something probably as a city administrator you have to anticipate a little bit. Are there certain areas that you are going to look to first to cut back in?
Well, the last place you want to look at is personnel, because without the people we have, we can't get the work done. But, health issues is, health insurance is always an issue. The state's having problems with it. Cities are starting to have problems with it. So, there's numerous areas to look at. But, one thing that has helped a little bit that we've done is we've kind of taken the money from the video gaming and set it aside for certain things like paying pensions and special demolitions. So that way we weren't counting it in the budget. So if the state does end up taking some money away from us, that money might be able to be used to help out.
Is that something you're seeing in other towns, in this area? Are they using that video gaming money like that?
I don't know how the other cities are using it, but our council said, hey, let's not just throw it in our normal budget. Let's set it for certain priorities, and we divided up into 5 sections, and one was demolition, buying equipment that we normally wouldn't buy, paying towards pensions, putting a little bit back in reserves.
So it's kind of a backup fund.
Correct.
All right. So do Charleston and Mattoon do any co-op projects? Is that something that the cities work on?
We actually get together once a month with the management teams of both cities and just talk. What are you doing? What are we doing? We haven't really done any cooperation efforts other than, I mean, we've tied our water systems together. If something would go down in Mattoon or something would go down in Charleston, we would be able to supply each other with some water. But when the Future Gen came in, there was a big push to maybe have the water treatment plants, the sewer plants, actually send this treated sewer water to the Future Gen site.
Right.
And we were going to jointly together send both some of that water to them for their cooling purposes.
So there are times when you can come together to make common efforts work.
Correct.
Okay. And so can you tell us, since we're talking city administrator and maybe people don't know you as well yet because you've kind of been a behind the scenes guy for several years, can you talk about your family and yourself a little bit? Are you native to Mattoon?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Mattoon. My parents moved to Mattoon in 1969 and raised my brother and I. I have one brother. I'm married. I've been married for 14 years to Michelle Gill. We have two girls, Peyton and Avery. They're 11 and 7. And my Peyton just started middle school, so it's good to see her going to the middle school where I was a junior high when I went there. So it's kind of neat to see my kid going through the same schools that I went through.
Okay. What do you think makes Mattoon special? Sitting in the position that you do, what would draw people to Mattoon?
Well, for me, it's large enough to have some nice things, tourism, some artsy stuff, but yet it's small enough that it feels like everybody knows each other. Of course we don't, but it's a small town feeling. But yet we're in such a great location to where, if you want to go to Chicago, you're 3 hours away on 57, and St. Louis is 2 hours, and Indianapolis is 2 hours. So, it's just a small town feel, but yet you can get to the big cities fairly quick if you want to.
Okay. And you talked about Progress Square a little bit a while ago. Can you kind of explain to our viewers what that is for those that aren't familiar with it?
Progress Square is just a parking lot downtown on 17th and Broadway where a few years ago it was just an asphalt parking lot. Didn't look real good. We had some brick around it that wasn't pleasant. It was falling down, a little brick wall. And we've taken that and put new plantings around it, softened up. We lost a few parking spaces, but not a lot. And like I said, with landscaping, it's got some wrought iron fencing around it, put some new lighting in it. Along with that, the Lumpkin Foundation had a mural put on the wall to the building next to it. And it's just a beautiful sight downtown, and makes people welcome to come down and take a look at it.
Okay. Are there things that make Mattoon competitive with other cities? If someone was looking for a site to bring their business, what make Mattoon competitive?
Well, it kind of goes back to what I mentioned before. We're in a good location, south of Chicago. We've got the interstates 72 and 74, 45 miles north of us. We've got 70, 25 miles south of us. And we're along Route 16. We've got the 1000 North exit that goes both to Mattoon and Charleston. So we're just in a good location for transportation.
Okay, let's talk about 1000 North really quick. That kind of came in the Future Gen era when that was all being talked about. Has that had a benefit to the city of Mattoon?
It has. There's been some downfall for it too. That it's used a lot by the Chicago people coming down and going to Shelbyville, Lake Shelbyville, where they were coming through town, maybe spending some money on supper or gas. But for the overall, it's opened up the north side of Mattoon and Charleston, for that matter, of being able to possibly put some warehousing up there and making access of the interstates nearby.
Okay, and I know a lot of, economic development-wise, what's going on right now is a lot of places that are already existing in a lot of small towns are expanding. Are you seeing any of that in Mattoon?
Yeah, we've got some expansion going on right now. I mean, Calcan is putting a big expansion on. We've got another manufacturing plant south of town that I'm not sure if I'm able to talk about yet, but they're getting ready to put expansion on, and some of our other factories are adding people, and we've got some new uses out of the old AMPAD building. So no, I think our manufacturing has expanded in the last year and two.
And so what are you seeing jobs-wise in the city of Mattoon? Are we, on par for unemployment numbers? Are there new jobs coming open?
We've got new jobs coming open. We are a little bit behind the national average, I think, in unemployment, but it's getting better. Some of it is our manufacturings have had some concerns on being able to hire qualified candidates. So that is an issue that we've got to try to address.
Okay, and so for those that are maybe just joining us, we're getting towards the end of our show here, but we're talking to Kyle Gill, the new city administrator for Mattoon. So can you talk about some of your favorite parts of this job? I know you haven't been permanent long, just this week, but looking forward, what do you think is going to be the best part of this job?
Well, it's like I like to be a problem solver. I like working with people. I like listening to other people's solutions and saying, well, what if this, and just trying to work together as a team. We have a great group of department heads that are running the city right now. Good commissioners and mayor, they're all business oriented, and I think we've got everything in place to help develop Mattoon better in the near future.
Okay, and so when you're talking about department heads, what are all the departments that are that report kind of to you?
Yeah, we've got the Public Works Department director. We've got the police chief, fire chief. We have tourism, the city clerk, the finance director. So we've all worked together. We've got an IT director that of course takes care of all the computers. And we just all work together in solving a lot of different problems for the city and trying to put the best policies forward for a good development.
Okay, so if someone in the community was thinking of something they wanted to talk to you about, you said you have an open door policy, so is that the kind of thing where they can walk in and talk to you? Do you encourage that?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I've had a couple people today come in, just walk in and congratulate me, but yeah, if I'm there, it's more than welcome to come in. I do suggest people try call first because I am in a lot of meetings and I run around. I manage by moving around. I like to go down and visit the other departments to see what's going on, and so I try to stay active in that as well. Okay,
and what's your communication philosophy? I know because you have to do a lot of talking to people, it sounds like, all day long. So, what's your feeling on that?
I'm more one-on-one communication. I'm not a big emailer. I need to do more of the emailing, but no, pick up the phone, give me a call. Let's meet, sit down and talk issues out, and I'm, like I said, pretty much an open door policy. So come in and tell me your concerns.
So is there anything in the near or immediate future that you're going to do? I mean, what's the next step for you? Are you just going to try and settle in, or?
Well, I'll have some challenges early on. We've got contracts with our unions that will be starting next spring. So my first few months here is I'm going to be, reviewing the contracts and doing a lot of number crunching, trying to figure out how we can, sustain the increases of health insurance and all the other rising costs that are happening in the city.
Okay, so it sounds like you're kind of the city's problem solver and logistics guy.
I try to be, but I got a lot of help.
So what do you do when you don't know the answer?
Well, that's a good thing. There's a group of city managers, so you can always call. We meet every once in a while as well, every other month, and just sit down, have lunch, discuss the issues their cities are having. Hey, have you ran into this? So, there is a group of managers and administrators out there that I can contact. There's business people out there that have, they're going through the similar things with the health care, with the Obamacare, and so there's just plenty of people to talk to, and if you keep the communications open, you can come to the right answers.
All right. Well, Kyle Gill, the new city administrator for the city of Mattoon, we thank you for coming in and talking to us on At Issue today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and if you have a topic for us here at Issue, we would welcome you to send it to weiu@weiu.net, and we appreciate you watching today. We'll see you next time right here on At Issue. I'm your host, Kate Pleasant. Thanks for watching.